Good morning, lovely people. So today is the video that I'm going over Hexpose, another Minecraft HexCasting add-on. And if you watched the last video, the hexical video, you may have noticed it used the scrying patterns. Yeah, those were identifiers. I thought it was from hexical. No, those are from this mod, Hexpose. I've already edited that previous video, so the patterns from this mod aren't in there. Although I did leave in a mention of me making a video on these scrying patterns. So I'm doing that as well as the two or couple of patterns that this mod adds. So let's hop into it. Now, the most basic thing you're going to need for scrying is these two patterns. They're heavily important, and you may also notice I couldn't make it show you how to write, so I'm going to just write out every time. So essentially, this is identify. You draw it like so. Bam. Detectives, purification. Yeah, it'll tell you what the identification of a thing is. And it's in scrying, it's in identifiers. That's where these two are going to be. Identifiers is the main things you're going to need to be using the most, so keep those in mind. So this one will identify what a thing is. So in this case, it's a player, or I could even go down and use it on a block. It just needs anything, and it can identify it. And it can also tell you from what mod it's from. So it's also pretty useful. So, bam. HexCasting edified panel. So yeah, it has some good uses. Now, this one will tell you what a iota is. So if I do this, it'll show me it's a HexCasting entity iota. And if I then change it so it's a identified player iota, then it will just say it's a Hexpose identifier iota. So yeah, pretty useful. These two you're gonna need a lot. Now this next section, I believe, is blocks. Yeah, and it can show you all sorts of cool stuff about block types and stuff. So this, you give it a identifier as a block. So let's say I just want the edified panels again, because edified panels are just everywhere right now. And then I identify it because I just need the identity of it. And because we're going to be working with it a bit more, why not duplicate it? So now I'm going to draw this pattern to see how difficult it would be to mine. So now let's just double check, make sure I had it right. Yep. So I'm going to start down here. Go like so. Minus purification. Bam. It gives me a 2. Because I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be able to break it with just my hands if I go in survival mode. Yeah, it would be quicker with a axe. So, yeah. Little niche cool thing. And also this one will tell you how hard it would be to explode. So if I just do it again. Oh, not what I meant to do. Okay. If I just copy it again, because I still want to keep it, and then I do the same spell to get how hard it is to explode, it tells me it's a 2 because it's a level 2 on how hard it is to explode. So yeah, I can tell you all sorts of cool little things about the block that you may not know. Now this one will tell you the direction of the block, which in a wood panel is not the case. But if I get this wood right here and I get its direction, it should tell me which direction it's facing. I just need to do that. Then using that, I can, if I have more room, which you also may have noticed, I changed up how stuff is designed for this video. I used a different... I read that wrong. Yeah, I need a vector, not a identifier. Oopsie. But yeah, I am using a different building style. Just because I thought it would fit. It's more about learning what's in the nature than anything. So, bam. And now, after some struggle, there we go. And now you can cast orientation and it'll tell you which way it's oriented. Yeah, that was too difficult. Now this one will take a vector and tell you how far along it is in growing, which I don't have anything around me that's growing, so can't really give you any example. Now, it'll tell you null if it can't grow though, but it can be stuff like a crop, or it could be like a honeybee nest, yeah, beehive, a composter, a cauldron, and strangely cakes too. But yeah, it can tell you the progress of something, which is pretty nice. Now, this pushes a list of identifiers from a vector, which isn't all that much, to be honest. It just tells you a whole bunch of little things, like special data that it has, similar to NBT data in a way, but I don't know if it's actually NBT data, so don't take my word for it. But you just, yep, and it tells you it faces on an axis. It just tells you what type of data it can have. And yeah, now this one just takes a vector and identifier and then pushes type of takes type of block and a facet and pushes the facet's value. Okay, so now if I go over here, and just because I need that out in the first place, I'm going to get that out. I'm also just going to get the position of this block. Okay, and it needs the identifier second, so I'm going to rotate these two. And then using that, I should be able to cast this, which should then in tow tell me that's 1. Yeah, because it is facing upon a vector, I believe. Yeah, so it just tells me 1, as in, yeah, it's facing on a axis. So, yeah, can be pretty useful. Now, this one just gets the color that something would appear as on a map, I believe. I actually don't remember if I ever actually used this thing properly. So I give it a identifier. So I'm just gonna get something like that, then identify it. And I just layer it. Yeah, it'll just give me a little thing like that, based off the color of the block, I assume. So, yeah, pretty cool. Now, these two are basically chat iots, or chat patterns. They're based around getting stuff from the chat. So let's say I say hi in the chat. So if I cast this pattern, which should look like that, it'll get the last thing that was said in the chat. It'll tell you how many 20ths of a second it was ago. It'll tell you what was said, and also who said it. So yeah, and it gets these as text iots. We'll go over text iots more later, but yeah, and this one will basically do the same thing, but it'll be a list of lists, and it'll just give you multiple lists like this, but for each and every message up to 32 messages ago, which is pretty cool. Now let's get on to entities. And entities basically are similar to like just normal check stuff, but it gives you more options. So like, you know, the pattern that gets the height of a entity, right? Yeah. So this one is one that basically gets the width of an entity. Yeah, it gives you the width of an entity, so it's pretty cool. And it's just Ryan entities, like stanometers, purification, but pushes the width rather than the height. So pretty cool. Now this one, instead of pushing the direction, because this one is supposed to be like Aladdin's purification, instead it pushes the direction that the top of your head is facing. So let's say I'm looking up, I get here, and then I do this. It would be pointing up in that direction because that's where the top of my head was facing. So yeah, pretty cool. Yeah. Now, these two I kind of grouped together because they both have to deal with telling how much health you have. Just they each do it in a different way. Because this one tells you how close a entity is to dying, like how much hearts they currently have, to my knowledge. So if I were to cast it on myself, it should look a little something like so. It gives me 20 because I currently have 20 hearts. But this one is different. It instead would tell me how much hearts I could have at max, which is pretty nice. Now, yeah, so these two are good for understanding how much health you can have at any given time. Now, these two I also grouped together because they both have to do with telling how you can breathe. This one will just tell you how far away you are from suffocating. So, like I said, if I cast it upon myself, which casting looks like this, it'll tell me I am 15 away, the normal max, from suffocating. Now this one basically will do the same thing as that to max health, but for breathing. So since I'm not suffocating at all right now, it will still just tell me 15, because that's my max breathing capacity, which is pretty nice. Now, these two are kind of a little different, but I also kind of see them as similar. So this one will just tell you if the player or if an entity is on fire, and if they are, how long they will be on fire before the fire goes out. So it can be useful. And if you aren't on fire, it will just give you -1. So let me show you that. And -1 because I'm not on fire. Now this one is called Enderman's Purification, just because Enderman can't touch water, and this one has to deal with water. Kind of a little ironic, but yeah. Essentially, it'll just give you a boolean on whether that entity is touching water, rain, bubbles in a column, anything to do with water. It'll check if they're touching it. And if they are, it'll give you true. If they aren't, it'll be false. Yeah. Now, these next two patterns have to do with maturity of a entity in a way. This one has to tell if a entity is young or not, which it has to be a living creature, of course. So it would like check, for example, I don't know, a villager. It would check if a villager is a baby or adult. And also, oddly, it works on armor stands. I haven't tested that out, but apparently it does. So feel free to test out what that'll give you. I don't know if it'll give you true or false. But yeah, it can be used to get if an entity is grown up or not, which obviously in my case, it shouldn't work. So if I were to just cast it like so, it would false because the player can't be a baby. Unless you get some mod to do that, but I don't think I've heard that. Now this next one will tell you if a entity is in love or is ready to mate, I should say. So if you're trying to mate together to, like, I don't know, horses, it'll tell you if that one has already been affected and is ready to actually give you a baby horse. Yeah. And apparently it'll give you null if the creature is not capable of reproducing. Yeah. So simple as that. Pretty cool. Now, these next two are Sloth's Purification and Racer's Purification. Sloth's Purification will essentially just tell you if the entity is sleeping, I believe. Yeah, it will just tell you if an entity is sleeping, so kind of useful. Now, this next one will just tell you if they're running, which applies to sprinting, then jumping or swimming, leaving the ground after. Like, it just applies to anything to do with moving faster on foot. Yeah, and it doesn't only apply to the player. It also can apply to a cat, a fox, anything that can speed up its movement. Yeah, which is pretty cool. And these next couple of patterns. So this one is Vehicle Purification. It'll basically you give it a entity like me, and then you just draw it out. And basically what it's supposed to do is tell you what entity it's riding, and if it's not riding an entity, it'll give you null, as in it is writing entity. Now this next one will take a entity, as in the ride itself, and then we'll give you a list of entities to show you all entities riding that entity, which is kind of cool in a way. Yeah, which obviously in my case, you can see if I cast it, it will just do nothing, because I have nothing riding me. I don't know if it can apply to things, writing things. I don't know if it can do that, but yeah. Now, this can basically, it can take a projectile entity and then can go back to see which entity launched that projectile, which is pretty cool. And it can also push null if the shooter is outside your bit, so be a little careful. Yeah, and this next one, yes, it'll push whether a player has it'll just push whether a entity has been tamed, and if so, it'll push the player who tamed that entity. So yeah, kind of looks like a little heart with a name tag. Yeah, pretty cool. And this next one, our final one for entities, it'll tell you how much absorption hearts that entity has. So in my case, it should be 0, because I have no absorption hearts. Yeah, 0. But if I get like a golden apple or something, and I just switch survival to make sure, yep. And now if I were to cast it again, with enough room obviously, it'll give me 16, because I have 16 absorption hearts. So, pretty cool. Yeah. So, these patterns are pretty good for understanding something about an entity. Now, they don't really use identifiers, but yeah, pretty cool. Now, this next section should be environment, which, funny enough, doesn't have to do with the environment that you're in, but more of the casting environment. So this one will just tell you if any vector or entity is within your bit. So let's say I choose that over there. Bam. I'm going to duplicate so I can show it twice. So first I'm going to go back over here. So it should still be within my bit. So basically, I'm going to cast it just like so. Bam. True, because it's still within my bit. Now, if I move far enough away, like say back over here, because it has to be like more than 32 blocks away from me, so it's outside my bit. If I then swap them and then cast again, it'll come out false, because it's no longer within my casting range, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so it can be useful to tell if a cast would be possible from a certain distance or not. And I believe it should also work if you're doing it through a greater sentinel as well. So yeah, pretty cool. Now, this one is just a simple little thing to say, hey, you're casting this on a staff or not. So if I were to do this, it'll come out true. But if I end up changing it to be like a spell in the spell book, if I close this up and do this, and then bam, put it in the spell book, and then I cast it with my artifact. I forgot a part. Gotta do a thing with that so it would actually show what it got. There we go. Then I put it in again, and then I cast. It'll come out false because I'm not casting it with a staff. So it's pretty cool in my opinion. Now there's other patterns similar to it. Ooh. Huh. I see. Oh well. Yeah. But essentially that's how that pattern works. Now, this one will just push if I'm casting with my dominant hand. So if I just go like so, it'll come out true. But now if I switch to my offhand, then do it again, it'll come out false because I'm no longer doing it with my dominant hand, which is pretty cool. And you may also notice that it doesn't specifically say left or right hand, because in the settings you can change if your dominant hand's your right hand or your left hand. You can change that. Now, this will just push a boolean on if you're casting from a casting device. So yeah, if you're using something like an artifact or a trinket or a cipher, any of these, it'll push true if you're using those to cast it. So yeah, pretty useful. Now it can also push true for other, like any other added on type ways of casting that use a device. Like for example, in hexical case, that would be true if you use a genie lamp, because it's a casting device. So yeah, pretty cool. Now this next one basically will just push true if it's cast through a spell circle. So if in my case I try cast it, it will always come out false unless if I use a spell circle to cast it. So pretty cool. Now on to our next part, which is food. And the food section, it requires some workarounds because you have to use item identifiers and stuff to use it. So I'll get into that in a second. So we'll come back but essentially this will take a player. So these first two patterns will take a player entity or an entity. That's a little weird. Why is it saying entity? Some of these patterns are a little weird. You can see one down there that doesn't work, but we'll go over that one. Essentially, this will just take player entity and then push how hungry they are. The lower the number, the hungrier they are. So, yeah. And this one does the same thing, but with absorption, I believe. So just like so, and it wanted a player there. Okay, bam. And 20 because I have max absorption because I have saturation on, just because I like to record with saturation. Now these two will take a identifier, a food identifier, or a item identifier I should say, and pushes whether that item can be eaten. And yeah, this one will just also tell you how much hunger it'll give back if you eat it. This one does the same thing but with saturation. So yeah, pretty useful. And I'm gonna skip ahead a little for you, because to get a item identifier you need to get a item iota, and to do that you need this pattern. So let's say I want food. Because it's required I have to jump ahead, so we're just going to pick a glowberry. So I'm going to get it into my stack, like so. I'm just going to do the normal stuff to get it into my stack, because it's just convenient, like so. And now, to put it in, you have to do this. Oh, that's wrong. Almost did it the wrong way. You have to do this. We'll go over more about what this is able to do later. But yeah, so on purification, bam, I get glowberries and how many there are. And then using this, you identify it. Detectives, purification. Good. And now even if you pick up the item, it'll stay in your inventory or your stack, which is pretty cool. Now going back to food, because we'll go over more items later. And basically, because I want to not lose this, I'm going to duplicate. And essentially, yeah, I'm going to take I'm going to identify if I can eat it or not. So just like so. And bam, true, because I can eat it, which is very nice. So just want to make sure I don't run out here. Bam. Get. So now I can identify how much I'll get from it. So let's do that. I'm not trying to make Pac-Man now. And then, bam, tells me how much it would give me. It would give me 2. So it would fill up one of my little hunger right down there. It would fill up one of those, which is pretty useful. And then I believe the saturation may be the same number, but let's see, because I myself don't remember if it is. So down like that, and then straight out. Saturation, bam. Saturation, not the same. Well, yeah. So those pretty useful patterns. Now this next part will basically tell you if it's meat or like a snack or something. I don't know what clarifies as a snack. I believe that may include stuff like cakes. But let's see if, well, obviously we know that a glowberry won't be meat. So let's just show that off just to show you how it looks. Flesh purification, false. It's not meat. Why would you think it's meat? And now for the little snack purification, false. So yeah, it has to be something like cake or something. Yeah, but now moving on to item purifications. So item purifications work off of taking a entity and then pushing out a special item iota, which I believe is mostly contained within the mod itself. We've seen a couple of different ways to do item iotas before, but they each kind of do their own thing. Because items are quite complex little things. You could always need them for different things. But so you just need to get the item into your stack, and then you just need to do this. You need to cast item purification, and it'll get into your stack. And then you can identify it and do anything else you need with it. Now, this next one is called offer purification. What it's supposed to do is take an identifier, take a number, and then creates a item iota, which I believe would be that many, like that. It would take that identifier and make it into an item, and then take that number and give you that many of that item iota into your stack. Now, you can't export item iota, so you can't duplicate stuff like this. But I tried making this spell work. It fails. It does not work. It doesn't. If I try to cast it for you, which I'm going to do now, basically what it will do is it'll expect the number and that to be in the same place at the same time, which doesn't work. So let's say I just want it to be 1. And I'm going to duplicate it so I can show you the other way as well. So let's first do it the other way so I can show you that it doesn't work this way. So if I try to do offer purification, it says expected a identifier at index 1 of the stack but got number 1. Doesn't work. So let's get rid of both of those because that wasn't right. Bam. Okay, so clearly this should work then because it said index 1 is the indicator it wanted. So let's do that. Failed. Expected a positive integer at index 1 of the stack but got a identifier. This spell just doesn't work. I don't know how to make it work, so I have it clearly abandoned. It's abandoned for a reason. It just doesn't work. But yeah. So now let's move on to some other purifications. Basically, these are to get a item iota of what's in your hand. So let's say I want to get a staff iota into my hand. I give the entity, and then I do this for my main hand, tool purification, because you're usually going to be holding your tools in your main hand. And then if I say, I don't want that, then what I could do is instead give myself to the stack again, but this time go this way for my offhand accessory purification. And yeah, does some cool stuff. And I don't know if I can combine the two, so I'm not even going to try. But yeah, pretty cool. Now, these next two have to do with inventories. Basically, one will give you, it'll take an entity and then give you a list of items within that inventory of that entity. So in my case, if I cast it, it would look something like so. It'll give me hex notebook, FI'd staff, null item, because I can't really grab all that, because you can't grab all that much about a player's inventory. It doesn't like you doing that. Yeah. Now, this next one is a lot easier to do most of the time, because it just takes a vector, then just returns a list. So it's usually used on chests, hoppers, and all sorts of other things. Pretty cool. Now, over here, basically, it'll give you what a entity is wearing, like armor. Yeah, so it's pretty useful. And it only applies to normal vanilla slots, not accessories, not like extra little areas. Only vanilla slots, so keep that in mind. But yeah, so it'll also start from the feet. So the first iota it shows will be your boots, and then it'll go up to your leggings, your chest plate, then your helmet. So yeah, it can be pretty useful. Now this next one basically will return what's in your ender chest, and you cannot cast it from a different player. It doesn't allow you to do that. You have to basically cast it yourself to get your inventory. So yeah, kind of looks like Mind's Reflection plus the low cards purification. Yeah, so pretty cool. Now these next two, basically it'll take a stack, yeah, like so, and then we'll tell you how much items is in that stack itself. Or you can do this one, which is warehouse purification, which will take a item iota, and then instead of telling you how much it currently has, it'll tell you how much it can have. If I made it an identifier, I missed. It was supposed to be a identifier. Make sure to read doing these stuff right, otherwise you can mess up. But yeah, so now like so, bam, warehouse purification. It can hold up to 64 glowberries. Yeah, so pretty cool. Now these next two are for tools in specific. It'll just tell you how much damage it can currently take before it breaks. So like the durability that it's currently at, and then you have fragility purification, which will then tell you how much durability it could take at its peak before you start using it. So yeah, pretty cool. Now this one will just give you a list of the enchantments a item has, and then this one will just give you the specific strength of that enchantment on that item. So yeah, pretty cool. Now these two just, yeah, hold on, let me double check these. Gets to give a name of this item. Yeah, these are for like if you've written down a name through an anvil or something. So little anvil here. Doomberries. Okay, so now with this, I should be able to just do something like so. Doomberries. And now, like so, I should be able to just see this. This will either work or it'll fail. Yeah, it'll tell me what its current name is, which is pretty cool. And if I do it again, but this time instead of casting that, I cast it the other way to get the legacy, it'll tell me it's legacy. Or so it was supposed to, but apparently not in this case. Oh well. But yeah, this glowberry doesn't have much of a legacy anyways, but yeah, it'll give you a list of all the names it has had, which is pretty cool. Now, this next section, oh wait, no, we're still in, yeah. So, these have to do with, it has to do with Casters Gilmore. These two are for Casters Gilmore. Basically, one will check what index number it's currently on how it looks. And then the second one will just check how many different forms it can have. So if I do it on my artifact, because I haven't really touched my artifact, and it's still the same number as before, the same index number, then I duplicate because I'm going to use it twice. And then if I cast this, what it'll do is it'll tell me that's on 0 because I haven't changed it. Now if I switch it around and then cast this to see how many different options I do have, if I do want to change how it looks, it would look something like this. Then bam, I have 8 different options to choose from. Now if I do it on my spellbook instead, you will notice that I get a different result entirely. So if I just cast Caster's Grimoire 1, bam, it shows me it's on the second option, which is pretty cool. So yeah, little nice cool spells to know how to, or not how to, but like what Caster's Gilmore you're on. Yeah. So now these should be reading and writing, or not writing, but biography purifications. Yeah, so basically this will take a notebook, not like the Hex notebook, or sorry, not a spell book, but like a book. Yeah, like this, or even this. This actually doesn't work, but it'll take a book and quill and see what text is inside. So let's just, done. Now I should be able to get text out of this, just like so. This can be useful, like, in some cases. Now, I don't know if this works on unsigned books, but yeah. Yeah, so it'll give me the text within it. Pretty cool. Yeah, and then pushes the author of the book and its generation number. So let's say I now want to sign the book. Sign. It's me. No, it's testing. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I ran out of room. Testing. Yep. Just because that's funny. And now if I do the same stuff again, but instead I cast that pattern, just like so, bam, it'll tell me what generation it is and stuff. Now, I believe generation means how many copies it is. So let's just see if that is the case, because I'm curious what it means by generations. You can see I messed up. I wrote it the wrong way. But yeah, so I believe it has to deal with copying a book, but I actually don't know how to copy books and stuff, so yeah, but pretty cool though. Yeah. So great little patterns to tell what's in a book and who wrote a book and what generation number it is. Yeah, so pretty awesome. Now, this is collector purification. It basically gauges the rarity of an item. So my edified staff is common. If I use my edified staff and then try casting it, which starts from the bottom, it will give me 0 because it's common. Now if I get something like the dragon egg, which is in functional blocks for some reason, and then I just do this common stuff, Then I get its rarity just like so. It'll tell me 3 because it is the highest rarity, and 3 is the highest rarity, which is pretty cool. You can see it has purple text, and I could also do it on a shard of quench delay. It should give me a 2 or a 1 or something, but yeah, pretty cool. So yeah, now moving on to this next part, which is media. This is to identify how much media you have, or another thing has, or even how much potential media it can store. So this is a pretty common one. This one, basically you draw and it tells you how much media you are able to use. So just bam, it tells me that much. So yeah, pretty useful like. Now this one will take a entity, so let's say me again, just because it's a good example, and then cast it, bam, it'll use that thing. It can take an entity, a item, or a vector. So yeah, pretty cool. And it'll tell you how much it can use. Now this one is potential. It'll take an item and it'll either give you a number or null. So let's say I throw out that, then I get it into my stack, blah blah blah, because that's how I need to do it. Then I turn it into an item with the normal process. So bam. Now I should be able to use this, and it should tell me what its potential is. It may end up not working because it's already written and stuff. But yeah, so because it can hold 5 dust as of currently, it'll give me the number 5, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so that's all about media. Media doesn't have that much. Now we're getting into miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is basically 4 patterns that are just kind of nonsense in a way. This one will just identify what variant of a cat you're looking at, which is something. Now, this one will tell you how much a creeper is progressing in its explosion. So, yeah, it'll tell you how far along a creeper is before it explodes. So, yeah, kind of cool. Now, this one basically just pushes the rotation of an item in an item frame. It's an integer from 0 to 7, so yeah, kind of something. Now this next one, I actually don't remember much. Oh, make sure I have that way. Okay, and now this one will just it'll push the variant of a painting. Yeah, so kind of cool. Yeah. Now this next section should be status effects. So it'll give you status effects off of like just the player and stuff, I believe. So yeah, you can get a list of identifiers as in effects. So if I do this, because I have my saturation on, it should pop up with saturation. Now if you don't have any effect, it will show you no effects here. So yeah, something pretty cool. You can also give a item for this one and get a list of identifiers of what effects it will bestow when you use it or consume it. So yeah, pretty useful patterns. Now this next one, basically just take that identifier and then it'll tell you the general goodness of the effect. And by goodness, they mean just if it's beneficial, neutral, or negative. So let's say I want to test my saturation. Now it's going to obviously pop up with a 1 because it is a positive effect. It's positive. It's going to be helpful. Now if I had something like withering, it would pop up with -1. Most definitely harmful. Now levitation, I believe, would be a 0. So let's just get a little levitation. So you have to find a levitation potion. Can be a little difficult at times to figure out where levitation is. Is levitation purple? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to find levitation. That's completely my bad. But, yeah. Basically, it will just tell you signs harmful, neutral, or positive, which is good. Now this next one, basically we'll take an entity and identifier and show you how potent the effect is on that individual. So if I just reset my stack and just do this again, get, it needed me. I forgot, it needed me. And then like so, then I take it out. Then I get me, then I rotate them around because I believe that's what it needs. Yep, and then I cast it. What it should do is tell me how strong the effect is. Which is abnormal because I thought it was a strength 2. But, But, yeah. Something of the sorts. Now, this next one, basically, will identify how long the effect will last. So, yeah, it can just tell you how long the effect will last, and it's pretty neat. Yeah, so now these next patterns have to deal with villagers. Villagers have 4 different patterns, and each of them are kind of a little unique in their own way. This first one will tell you their tier. If they're a rookie, if they're a... I don't remember all the names, but it'll just tell you their level. It'll tell you how high leveled they are with a number. So, yeah, pretty useful. Now, this next one will tell you what job they work. If they are a mason, if they are a cartographer, if they're a librarian, it'll tell you which of those they are. So, yeah, pretty useful. And now, these next two, which, you can see one of them disappeared on me, but that's just a little problem with my world. But basically this one will just identify what the culture of the villager. So it'll identify if they came from a swamp, a plains biome, a mountain biome, something of the sort. It'll identify where they're from. And when I said mountain, I meant like a snowy biome. Don't know how I confuse those two. But yeah, it'll just tell you where they're from. Pretty cool. Now, the one that was supposed to be here but then disappeared on me, basically just projects the archetype of the villager, like what they're most attuned for in a specific biome, but I can't quite tell you. I can't quite tell you what this is about because I don't know what it means when it says nature archetype most attuned to. I can't tell you what it's quite for. So, yeah, don't know why I'm looking at it like it's there. So now we're on to the last of the scrying patterns. Now, this is luminance purification, or purification. Basically, it'll take a vector and then give you a number based off if it's a 0 light level or a higher light level. So it'll give you 1 to 15 to tell you how high the light level is. So obviously, since there's no light emitting things at my location, it'll give me 0. So I'm going to draw it, and it's going to be a 0. So like so, then should be something of this sort. Then bam. I gave it an entity instead of a vector, but you get the point. It requires a vector, and it'll tell you how much light is being emitted at that area. And if no light is being emitted, then return 0. And if side a transparent block, it returns 0 as well. Now, this will give you the weather, which is pretty cool. So it'll give you from 0 to 2. 2 is for like thunder, 0 is for clear, 1 is for rain. So yeah, you can just think of it as how bad the weather is. So yeah, let's say I want to cast it like this, and then I go down, go up and around, and then bam, I have a 0. Because my world is clear all the time. I said to stay clear. Now, these next two are based off of redstone. One just pushes the power of the redstone, how much power it has, from 1 to 15, obviously. Yeah, because obviously that's how redstone works. Then the next one has to do with redstone comparators, which I don't know all that much about, so I can't tell you how that actually works. So I am sorry to say, but I can't help you with this. But if you do know redstone and you do know how a comparator works, it just says it pushes the power level of the comparator would output if pressed against a position. So yeah, it'll just tell you what a comparator would do in that situation. I don't really know. Now, these next two basically will tell you how far the day has progressed and also how many 20ths of a second it's been since a world's been created, which I think is just how long it's been running. So if I do it like so, and then I draw it like this, you can see I messed up. There we go. And then bam. So it'll tell me 0.03 because that's how far my day has progressed, because I locked it to be only at this time of day. Only this time of day, because that's what I like. Now they look similar, but also they're drawn completely different. Yeah. And essentially, if I cast it like so, making sure I don't mess this up now, and then like this, then bam. Yeah, and remember, it's 20ths of a second, so it's been open for a while by that standard. Now, this one doesn't say it takes a vector, but you need a vector for it. So let me show you. I give it where I am, because it's a little broken. It won't say it needs that, but it does need that. And then you draw it, which goes something like that. And then you close it up. Bam. It'll give me Minecraft Plains biome, because I'm in a Plains biome. Now this next one doesn't need a vector, but instead it will just tell you what dimension you're in. So yeah, which I'm pretty sure it also works with modded dimensions too, but I haven't tested that. But yeah, it'll tell me I'm in the overworld, and remember, it'll show you Minecraft, then whatever it is, or the mod name, whatever it is, if it's from a mod. So yeah, pretty useful. Now this next one will tell you the phase of the moon, which, to be honest, I don't think is really all that useful, but you could make a spell that just strengthens on moon phases just to be silly. But yeah. And now this one will tell you if a compass will work in the dimension you're in. So yeah, let's say I want to go something like that. Then I want to draw around. And then bam. True, which means I can use a compass in the overworld. Yeah, so that's all the scrying patterns done. There's no more scrying patterns. Now we're moving on to patterns from Hexpose. So basically the first one is enlightenment patterns. There's two of them. There's one to tell you if a player entity is enlightened or not, and then one which will tell you if a entity has been relieved of its mind, which has to do with mind flay. So basically, in my case, I would get true because I am enlightened. Now, my mod pack is a little weird with enlightenment, but this still works. It still tells me I'm enlightened. Even if I were to cast this at the very start of the world, it will give me true because I start with enlightenment in my mod pack, because weird mod config stuff. Okay, and me, I've not been relieved of my mind. I still have my mind, which is pretty good. So yeah, pretty useful. Wait, yeah. So yeah, it'll just tell you if a entity still has its mind or not. But yeah, pretty useful. Now, on to our next patterns. These are text patterns. Text has to deal with turning any iota, so let's say me, into text, which it will look the same, But that's not the same. It's now text. It's now text iota. It is very different. Very different. It looks the same, but it's not the same. Keep that in mind. Because if I were to duplicate this and try to use this, it'll fail. Because it expected a entity iota, but instead got a text iota. So keep in mind what's text, what's entities, or what it was. Keep in mind. Now, these next two basically are like normal math. It'll treat the text like lists and just push two texts together. So let's say I want to make another thing of text, like so. Then bam, and combine the two. It'll just combine it like so. So pretty useful. Yeah. The next one will just tell you how long it is. So let's duplicate because I don't want to lose it. And then see how long it is. It'll tell me by each character. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I think that may count for multiple. But yeah, it'll tell me how long it is. But yeah. Pretty useful. Now, these two, it splits a text IO into individual glyphs. So let's duplicate just because useful. And so start from there. Make sure you have the room. Yeah, it'll break down into individual glyphs here. And you can see for some reason it has multiple of that. So no wonder it said 20, no, it said like 45 something. Yeah, but yeah. It'll break it down into individual parts. You can kind of use this to make up words a little easier, but yeah. So you can also use a list to make up text. So let's say I do the same thing but in reverse now. It'll then put it back together and for some reason do that. I don't know why I did that, but yeah. So this next part, so yeah, basically it treats texts just like lists. So yeah, they function pretty much similar. So it also has patterns that were originally just for lists also here. But yeah. Now, these will just all act as if you're casting on a list. Now this next one basically keeps only the first instance of a glyph in the text, I believe. So if I just find a little room here, and I do that, then I cast it, such as so. It will get rid of some things, but also duplicate some things, which is a little odd. Oh, yeah, I see. So basically, the first instance that you see a letter, it will be there, but any next time that letter pops up, it will get rid of it. So, yeah, kind of useful like. Now, yeah. Now, these next 6 patterns are kind of different in a way, I should say. Basically, they're like extra ways to change how something is. Now, kind of wish I split them up a little better, but yeah. Basically, you can color text into being a different color like red, blue, purple, which is somewhat useful. But basically, it works off of RGB colors with a vector from 0 to 1, as in percentages. So, yeah, it would just take a text, take a vector, then give you your new color, which is pretty cool. Yeah, now, the next couple are like bolding or italic or underlining, striking out, or another one, which I'll show you shortly. But yeah, so let's say I want to bold my text. I just have to get my text, get a true reflection, and then just cast this. Then bam. Gothic Gambit, I now have it in bold, and it duplicate it, it's a little weird. Working with iots straight into text can be a little off at times, so be careful about it. And I can also italicize it. So let's say I now want to make it italic too. So now I'm going to do the same thing again. Bam. Now it's italic. Which is pretty cool. And I can also put a line under it. So let's say I put a line under it just because I'm having fun messing with all these little different ways to mess with it. Yeah. And now this one will just put a strike through it, but we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to do this one. This one basically turns it into basically censored. So let's say true. And then I cast it just as I cast the others. Bam. All letters, it changes to that, which I find pretty cool. So, yeah. That's how that works. Now, that's all of the text patterns. Now, let's go into special raycasts. There's 4 special raycast patterns. There are, well, hold on. Let me remember. There's dowsing distillation and lily pad distillation. Basically, they work as architects. They work as archers and architects distillation, respectively. But they work for water, not blocks. So if you're trying to work off of water, it makes it a lot easier to use these two. Yeah. So these work for water. Now these two are railgun extentation or something, and then laser extentation. Probably saying that wrong, but oh well. They also work like archer's distillation and architect's distillation, or purification, whatever. They basically work almost the same, but as well as taking 2 vectors, they also take an ID, as in what type of block they want, an identification. So let's say I want to perform a raycast specifically only on dirt, because dirt is nice. Let's make it more specific into grass. So there we go. Now I have a grass block. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it because I don't want to lose it. And now I'm going to go over here, perform a raycast. So I'm going to look straight at this block, but I am going to do this. Then I'm going to do that, so I have that on top. Then I'm going to perform railgun extentation. Then bam. Now, that's not the location of that purple block. If I do break block, you'll see that it's not, but instead, it's the grass block below, which is pretty cool. So you can look for specific blocks in a certain area, and it's pretty nice. I actually never knew how these worked until I had to mess around with this. But yeah, so these are some pretty cool spells, and yeah, you can use them to get more direct information, and using the text iots, you could even do stuff with the chat. That's kind of cool. But yeah, so that's all for this video. Till I see y'all next time, have a lovely day.